Hey, Tony, how are you?
I'm doing good, Gene. How are you doing today?
Good. You know what? This is, well, for those tuning in, welcome to another edition of Getting Certified, where we talk about the things people need to do to earn one of our leadership certifications. We talk about the certifications themselves. Um, and this is the first episode where I'm actually sitting in our new um, corporate headquarters in Rapid City, South Dakota. So I took off so that's an actual wall from a new office. See, there's a door. Hold on. See, I'm at a real conference table in a real office space, and there's a couple other offices here with folks in them. And uh, first live episode broadcast of Getting Certified from the new corporate headquarters in Rapid City, South Dakota. So this is a BFD, a big freaking deal.
Nice. Well, it's good to see.
Uh, so um, so today this is the final episode. I guess this is episode 7 of this series where we've been going through the actual leader tasks in each one of the competency domains. Just doing a quick review of what they're all about, right, Tony? And today we're doing organizational learning. Specifically, what do senior managers, senior leaders do to support organizational learning? And it's the second half of that. We covered leader tasks 1 and 2 of organizational learning the last time we were live. And that was analyze organizational learning capacity. We covered that already. And then promote a shared vision we covered. So today we're going to start at foster knowledge emergence, right? Emergence, that's a fancy term. That just means for something to sort of bubble up, right? To emerge, to come to light, to happen, right? And so leader task 3 is foster knowledge emergence. And you can see there's several bullets here. This is a big leader task with a lot to consider. But the first, we'll just kind of go through some of these bullets, right, Tony? Dr. Tony Savoli is our chief learning officer. So he does a lot of certification exams, trains others on how to do certification exams. So very familiar with what we're looking for, what we want to hear from folks during the oral examination. But Tony, kind of tell folks, know why fostering knowledge emergence is important. We don't ask that specific question, but we ask some questions that are going to give folks an opportunity to communicate this to you, right? And so, what are you kind of looking for? Why is fostering knowledge emergence important for organizational learning?
Yeah, well, let's look at it, break it down, right? Foster. What is foster? Help something along, right? If you don't help foster that knowledge emergence, then this knowledge emergence doesn't happen, right? It doesn't emerge if you're not there helping it out, right?
Right.
And that knowledge emergence is, how that new knowledge is created, how's it shared, how's it implemented, right? So you got to massage it along sometimes. So what I'm looking for is to hear somebody tell me their experience of how they've done that, right? So I want you to tell me how, hey, this is what we did. We developed some new knowledge. This is what we did to share it, and this is what we did to actually put it in practice, right? If the knowledge isn't spread out and put into action, what value is it, right? So we want to make sure that we get that out. When we previously talked about, that team learning cycle, that acting phase is the most important. Well, when we learn about this knowledge, we want to get it out, right? We want people to actually put it into action. And if we can't do that, and we can't share it amongst the organization, then that organizational learning does not take place.
Right. And knowledge, it's a big, broad term, right? There's knowledge, ideas are knowledge, right? New ideas is sort of the best type of knowledge, a new idea that will improve something, or to innovate, create something entirely new that didn't exist before, right? Ideas are the main source of knowledge. New ideas, new creative, fresh ideas to get better and better at what the organization does is what is kind of that main source of the main type of knowledge. These ideas to improve and innovate, right? And so, why is creativity has a big if you're not supporting creativity, if you're not encouraging people to come up with new ways and new ideas of doing things, new ways of making things better, then the ideas can't possibly emerge, right? They can't come to the surface if nobody's being creative and thinking about that, right? And so challenging the status quo is important. So when you're doing exams, what are people telling you about the importance of challenging the status quo and encouraging creativity in organizations?
Yeah, and what we want to say is, right, as you said, idea, everything starts with an idea, right? No matter how good something is, originally it was just an idea, and usually that idea was supported, right? When we talk about how this knowledge merge is, right, support is where it happens, right? A lot of times we hear the garden example, right? Oh, the soil there, it doesn't matter how good somebody is, if it's the soil's not there to help that flower grow, it's not going to happen, right? So the supporting this creativity by letting people pursue their interests, right? We talked about individual purpose a few episodes ago. Creativity, the research says that creativity comes from intrinsic motivation, right? That internal drive, that individual purpose. Support that, right? Give people time. A lot of creativity is about trial and error. It's about experimentation. When we talk about learning from failure, that we have to talk about setbacks, right? This is all the ways that you support it. Creativity is what is going to be the lifeblood of an organization, because we get these ideas, these new ideas, and a lot of times these new ideas go against what is out there, and that's what's out there is the status quo, right? The current state. If we want to use the change management terms, that status quo is the current state. And any book you read about change leadership, they say, hey, you want to create a dissatisfaction with the status quo, right? Because that helps initiate change. Hey, let's get things moving, right? If we keep doing things this way, we're gonna find ourselves behind the 8 ball here. We need new ideas. We gotta get ideas, that those creative ideas that are going to get us to that next level to help get that competitive advantage, which we talked about that last episode. So supporting creativity is really what's going to lead to those new ideas that are going to help an organization grow and stay ahead.
Yeah. And just today we were talking about, we send emails from support at rblp.com and orders at rblp.com and exams at rblp.com. And so we're thinking about challenging the status quo on that, right? We've been doing that for over 5 years. Do we really need emails coming from 3 different places? Because that's going to increase the chance of something ending up in a spam or a junk folder, right? And so we're gonna challenge the status quo and see if we can't be creative about how we consolidate all of that. It's probably going to cause quite a bit of work for somebody with workflows and automations and all of the things that happen between the website and our CRM and so forth. But we'll see. Yeah, we'll see how that goes, right?
And that's an excellent example of that applied understanding that we're looking for, right? That procedural knowledge is, how do we put this in practice? The example you just gave of what we're looking to do to do things different, get creative in how we approach that email chain. And that's what we're looking for.
That would suffice as an example for challenging the status quo, right?
Yep. Yeah. We just talk about it a little bit more, flush it out a little bit more, and that would check the box on that one.
Yeah, and it's important because if you're not growing, if you're not learning from your experience, if you're not changing, if you're not adapting, then you're stale, you're stagnant. And that's why it's so important to challenge the status quo, right? I mean, no organization exists if it does the same thing. If it's doing the same thing it does now in exactly the same way in 10 years, it probably won't survive that 10 years, will it?
No, I mean, best practices eventually change, right? If you keep doing something forever, yeah, then you're going to stay there forever, right? If you
Right.
don't change and get with the times, you're going to render yourself obsolete. So
Yep.
challenging the status quo is a way to stay ahead of the game.
Yep.
You always need to look to see what you can do better, what you can improve, what is the latest and greatest out there that we haven't caught up to yet. That's going to give us that competitive advantage and put us ahead of our peers and competitors.
Yep. All right. And knowledge catalyst, that's an interesting word, right? And that's knowledge catalysts are those people in every organization has them. Those people inside of an organization that routinely are thinking creatively. They're solving problems, often problems that aren't even in their own sort of department. They'll have ideas about. So sometimes they're kind of viewed as the good idea fairy, and somebody Mr. Smarty Pants maybe because they. But they're the kind of people that based on experience, based on what they're seeing, have ideas for improvement. They're not just subject matter experts necessarily, but they're problem solvers. They figure things out, right? And those we have the what type of do people give pretty good examples of those on the examinations of being able to identify who those people are in the organization, because every organization has them, right?
Yeah, we see some good examples, and when you hear about these examples, it's one of the reasons why a lot of these organizations that these people work at succeed, because they know that these knowledge catalysts are important, right? And they support them, and how you support those knowledge catalysts, really a similar way to support creativity that we talked about. And a lot of it comes back to that status quo piece, that these knowledge catalysts are the ones that actually challenge the status quo. And you mentioned earlier, sometimes they're looked at a good idea fairy, but also sometimes they're looked at as troublemakers, right? For people that challenge the status quo or go against the grain, people look at them. Why? It works. Why are you trying to cause issues? But we need that, right? Because if you don't have those people that challenge it, you can't grow and change and develop and learn, right? When we want the organization to learn, if all we do is stay status quo, you don't learn anything, right? You have to challenge that status quo, see what else is out, what else is possible. And these knowledge catalysts are the ones that do that. So It's important that you as a leader, you have to recognize these people and support them.
Yep. Yeah, we earlier we were talking about the primary source of knowledge in an organization are ideas, these new ideas, and so a knowledge catalyst is like a new idea, right? The idea person, and sometimes they're not, like you said. Sometimes they're not always appreciated because they when you challenge the status quo, people have to start doing things a different way. Build new mental models around the way things are done. Kind of that, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So that they not universally beloved, but very important that senior managers know who they are and support them and give them an opportunity and hear out those ideas, right? Because that's disproportionate amount of good ideas may come from a relatively small number of people.
Yep.
In an organization.
You have to. Yep. They can come from anywhere. That's the thing about ideas, right? A little idea, can be a big difference, and everybody's capable of generating ideas. And I know earlier you gave the example when we were talking about creativity, and I said, hey, there's a good example of that procedural knowledge. An example of conceptual knowledge that we also look at, how things interrelate. You just mentioned, right? Challenging that status quo changes mental models, right? We've talked about that in previous episodes. So you got to start to see how it all connects together, and that conceptual and procedural knowledge, how they are all tied into this, right? As everything's tightly weaved together, but it does stand on its own a bit.
Yep. All right, and let's take a look at leader task number 4. which is going to be ensure knowledge diffusion. Diffusion, fancy term, just means to, it's not just knowledge sharing. Knowledge sharing can be, diffusion is a broader term. It means to actually get shared all the way across, to diffuse, to permeate across an organization. It's not good enough to share with one department if there's 10 departments that need it to be shared with. So you mentioned earlier, good ideas, new ways of doing things, improvements, innovations, they emerge. Senior managers become convinced that, yes, that is a good idea. That's the way we should do it. And of course, that started in one department, sort of in one silo, if you will. The bank branch on this side of town started doing this. It turns out it works really well. Now we want branches all across the city, all 25 branches, to do the same thing. Ensuring that new way of doing things, that improvement, that innovation gets diffused across all 25 is quite a challenge, right? And so, but why is it important? You talked about it earlier. If it doesn't get diffused out, if everyone doesn't start doing it that way, if only half or less than half of the bank branches in this example start using this new procedure, then the organization hasn't really learned, right? The organization-wide hasn't learned. So what do you hear from folks during examinations about this idea of knowledge diffusion, particularly the challenges to knowledge diffusion?
And that's what I would say. I would say that a lot of the examples focus on how challenging it is, right? Especially in large organizations. Large organizations are known for being very siloed. It's hard for information to get out and reach the ends that it needs to go. So breaking down those silos is a challenge, and there's a lot of research on that. But we do hear some good examples, and a lot of it comes down to these knowledge networks that we're going to chat about here, and I guess we can chat about it now, right? So having established knowledge networks is really what allows that knowledge to diffuse, right? Because if we can't get it out and people can't take advantage of it and find that value, then, as you said, they can't learn, right? If we can't get that knowledge emergence, right, is that process, right, of how knowledge is created, spread, and put into practice, right? It has to diffuse, right, in order for people to realize that this knowledge can be actionable and can provide value. So this is the end point, right? We got to get it to diffuse, right, to the ends, so everybody knows, everybody can learn, and the organization can kind of continue to grow. And it's done through knowledge networks, and these knowledge networks, it's the people that you chat with, that you talk to, and it's also the tools that you have, right? This could be looked at as a knowledge network right here. We're on StreamYard.
Yep.
And we're talking about all this knowledge, how it happens, right? This is part of the knowledge network of how we can diffuse this information and diffuse this talk on the leader task of support organizational learning, getting out there. It's reaching the ends. Anybody that's on here, it's getting out to them. So knowledge networks, it's not just the people that you can talk to and share knowledge with, also the tools that you have.
Yep, it's the people and the tools kind of coming together to form the network, right? So chat groups, Slack groups, Microsoft Teams, all of these technologies that connect people. It's not necessarily always enabled by technology, and a lot of industries, people still have a lot of face-to-face discussions, and right, it's not always enabled, but communities of practice, right? That's kind of the most effective and efficient knowledge network, because they're all they share a common understanding around an occupation or a role, typically, right? So if all of the bank managers, all 25 across the city, are a community of practice, right? Because they have the same job description. It's built around they have shared knowledge, right? So it doesn't even necessarily need to be your primary role. It could just be a certain type of knowledge that people share, right? So what are people telling you about communities of practice and their impact on getting knowledge out across the organization?
Yeah, so the communities of practice are a great way to actually learn from either you discovered something new, you share it with the community of practice, they take it, and then they go back to wherever their department is and spread it there, which is a good way for it to fuse. Or you go and you take something back, right? You learn from the community of practice, and when you go back, you say, hey, guess what I found? Let's do this and talk about this, and then spread it out. So when you have, a lot of times the communities of practice, a lot of subject matter experts, said people that are all working in that same field. So they're all speaking the same language. They're talking about, best practices, standards, and all that stuff gets hashed out amongst the group. And then when you go back to, your place of work, you share all that knowledge that you just learned. And, that's another aspect of that knowledge diffusing.
Right. And the knowledge management, right? It's a lot of different ways that organizations manage knowledge, how they sort of store it. Communities of practice are kind of the best knowledge management tool because they have a lot of great information stored in their head, both a lot of tacit knowledge, right, stored in their head. But what are when you're doing the exams, what are people saying about the importance of knowledge management across a variety of industries, right? And why and how are they supporting that?
Yeah, so a lot of people, what you hear now is that there is actually just a specific role of somebody who is a knowledge management officer, because there's so much out there, right? If we want to learn, learning is a process, and that process has to be managed effectively. So if you have this new knowledge being created, what do you do with it? Where does it go? Who has access it? How long do you keep it for? How does it get analyzed? If you don't have an effective process to manage that, it's tough for people to take advantage of it and find the insight in there and to find that value, because there's so much out there, you just can't manage it. But if you manage it properly, then that's where you'll be able to take advantage of it and get the most out of it, get that value. And that's how the organization ultimately learns, because you're managing this knowledge effectively. Everybody can access it. They know where it's at. And it just helps everything run smoother, right? If we want it effective and efficient, it's got to be managed. And then that's when that knowledge you'll see really kind of take hold in the organization and spread, and really see that's going to want to be the big impacts of what really distinguishes a learning organization, is how well they not manage that knowledge.
Yeah. So SOPs are written SOPs are a type of knowledge management, right? Rules, policy letters, all of these things are all knowledge. Yeah, all knowledge management tools. And of course, as an organization learns from its experience and changes over time, hopefully gets better and better at what it does, then that store of knowledge is constantly in flux, right? SOPs are only as good until you come up with a better way of doing something, right?
Yeah, that's what we said earlier. Best practices eventually, become old and get replaced. So, there's an art to kind of understanding, staying somewhere too long, right? Sometimes people leave a spot, right? They didn't gain all the value that they could have. They left too early, and some people kind of stay too long where, hey, that ship has sailed. Why are we still doing this? So you have to find that sweet spot. It's kind of an art of knowing when, time to move on.
Right. All right. So I think so that's it for leader task number 4. So, and over a period of 7 episodes, we have covered all 5 competency domains, and we spent 2 episodes on one episode on team climate, another one on team cohesion. Then we did individual purpose. We did 2 episodes on experiential team learning, because that's a broad topic, and another 2 episodes on organizational learning, again, because that is such a broad and complicated topic. So in conclusion, we've covered all 5 competency domains. This is easy to find on our website. It's under framework in the main header of the website. So everybody's welcome to take a look at that. And for folks that are already RBLP or RBLP coach or RBLP trainer certified, that's their reference document to go back to look at the framework. If they want to share that information with folks inside of their organization, they're certainly we would certainly encourage them to do that. They could build trainings and internal trainings and what have you based on that framework. That's different than getting people ready to sit for the oral exam. Certification prep training is specific to getting someone ready to sit for the exam, the certification exam. But talking to people about the framework and creating lunch and learns or whatever someone wants to do inside of their organization, they can use that framework there as a guide to develop those types of things that they want to teach and train people on. And as people become more and more familiar with then they may want to, we would encourage them to sit for a certification exam. And that's when they would take a prep course with one of our authorized training partners that is specific to preparing you for an oral exam, which is different than being introduced to information to start with. So that framework can be used as introductory to create introductory leadership training in organizations. Lots of folks do that. And then that introduces them to a lot of these topics and they begin to get experience with it. And then when they got enough experience, then they can sit for a certification exam and take a prep course that gets them ready for that. So again, that's under the framework tab on our website. If you're already certified, that is a resource for you because you understand all of those topics and each one of the leader tasks and supporting concepts. You've actually passed the exam and proved that you know what you're talking about there. So feel free to use that. All right. I think that's going to wrap up for today. Anybody that missed this can, you wouldn't, if you missed it, you wouldn't be hearing me saying this right now, but just for just for everyone's information, these recordings are stored on the RBLP Leadership Certifications YouTube channel. You can also find this on our Spotify channel and on iHeartRadio. No video there, just the talk on iHeartRadio. We try to do the Getting Certified episodes, if not weekly, at least every other week, depending on travel schedules and so forth with the team here. So look, in the future, more will be coming, and we'll talk about different aspects of earning one of the RBLP leadership certifications. Tony, as always, thanks. I think your collection of guitars is growing back there. Whose pink guitar is that?
That's my daughter's who I got. She touches it every once in a while. So some of them don't get used as often as the others.
So, okay, I got you. And I like the little red one there. That's funky.
Yeah, that's a ukulele one.
Oh, that's a ukulele. That's cool. Do you play the ukulele as well?
I know a couple chords of the ukulele.
Excellent. All right. So thanks as always for joining me. And thanks, Emilio, for running the technology in the background there. We appreciate you, my friend. Yeah. Can't wait to see you out here in Rapid City. Tony, can't wait to see you out here in Rapid City, South Dakota. The new headquarters for RBLP. Exciting times out here. Lots of furniture deliveries going on. Things will be hanging on this wall behind me the next time I broadcast from here. So this is all very, very exciting. So thanks, Emilio, and thanks to everyone in the RBLP community of practice. And we'll see you again soon for another episode of Getting Certified. Thanks.
LP. Learn more, lead better.